Hey everyone! So this video is unlike most of the videos that we've had throughout the semester. In this video, it's actually a conversation between me and Jared Mathis, who is a career services specialist in the Career Center at Baylor. Jared is going to take you through what a resume is and how to kind of create and how to stylize a resume. So this is an incredibly valuable video for you, regardless of what you want to do after you graduate from Baylor. He has some really great tips, and he introduces you to a bunch of sort of systems and things that you have access to here at Baylor that will help you in the job hunt and help you to craft a really effective resume. So check it out, and yeah, hope it's useful. Okay, hey everybody, I am back, and today I am making a video with Jared Mathis. Jared Mathis is a career success professional at the Career Center here at Baylor University. Say hi, Jared.
Hey, everybody.
All right, we are going to talk today about the topic of resumes, what a resume is, how you create a resume, and sort of strategies and tips and ways that students can sort of do this effectively so that they can go out on the job market and compete, right? And do well on the job market. So, Jared, the place I want to start here is just with the kind of basic question of what is a resume and why do we need one? Why do students need resumes?
Yeah, that's a great place to start. A resume is essentially just a list in document form of your skills, your strengths, and your past experiences. Now, this isn't anything and everything in your life, but rather those things that pertain to the job at hand, right? What are those things that have prepared you or shaped you into the person that will be stepping into whatever you're applying for? Maybe that's a graduate program, maybe that's a full-time job, but it's kind of a movie trailer of you, right? Just a snapshot. And the goal of the resume is ultimately to get a job, but first and foremost, it's to get an interview. Right? That's the next step in the process. And so we want to give them a good overview. We're not going to get into every single detail, but we want to make people interested in learning more about the things that we've done.
That's a really great point, that the point of a resume is to get you an interview, right? Kind of realizing the sequence of events there and the
Mm-hmm.
role that it has. So you mentioned grad school, and that raises a really good question of
Yeah.
how a resume is different from a CV, because I also made a video with another professor about what a CV is. So can you tell us sort of the differences between a resume and a CV?
Absolutely. Because oftentimes they're used interchangeably when they are a little different.
Yeah.
Your resume will be less academically focused. So generally a CV is used if you're going into a graduate program of some sort. And so you may focus more on the work you did within the department. You may focus more on publications or teaching experience. Sometimes if you have a lot of that, like if students went on and looked at yours online or any other professors, oftentimes it's just things that they're just listed one after another because you don't have enough space to talk about every conference paper that you wrote. So you're just going to list them. Whereas your resume, it's going to be shorter. We're probably going to give a few bullet points for each experience. We can still talk about some of those academic things, and we'll see that in just a little bit. But by and large, it's just shorter.
Yeah, that's that's good. That's totally right. Academic CVs, it's like a contest of who can make it the longest, right?
Right.
All right, good. So you alluded to it, and I think it's time now. Can we take a look at some CV or excuse me, some resumes? Take a look at some resumes, and can you show us sort of how to do a good resume and what some good tips are?
Absolutely. I'd love to. So what I'm going to show you all here is a template that the university has designed. We created this with quite a few employers in a variety of industries and their recruiters to create a template that is easy for you to use. You can sort of plug and play your own information and is designed in a way that companies like and want to read. So let's take a look. All right. Here it is. This is available to you. I'll make sure that you all have the link. But right off the bat, you see that it's not flashy. It's pretty much all text. There are no fun shapes. There are no pictures. And the reason we do that is because your resume will be run through what's called an applicant tracking system. And it will be looking for keywords and looking for those connections to the job that you're applying for. So all of those other things are frivolous and they do distract from your content. At the end of the day, your content is what is most important. Before your design and your format, what's in there is most valuable. So what I'd love to do is take us from the top and just kind of work our way down. We may not hit every single thing, but hopefully we can hit some key things, some foundational things that will help you when you're working on your resume. So all of our contact information, that's pretty straightforward, right? We need our future potential employers to get in touch with us. But right below that, you'll see career profile. In the past, if you've looked at other templates, you may have seen like an objective statement. And the thing about objective statements is everybody has the same objective. That's to get a job. So it's not a surprise. We need to give the employer something that they don't know.
Right.
On most resumes, they're going to talk about things that you've done, right? Actions, past events. But the career profile is a chance to talk about who you are, strengths, soft skills, skills like ability to lead a team or written communication or collaboration, or maybe you're empathetic or you're fun, right? These words that jobs might be looking for. So this is where you get to do it. You'll see that it's not very long. We advise 3 to 5 lines and no more than that. So that's just a few sentences. You won't have a ton of time, but that's okay. The cover letter will get into more detail there. But if you take a look at this one, a couple of things I want to point out. If you enjoy writing, you'll look and you'll see that these sentences feel a little awkward. You don't see pronouns. That second sentence, it doesn't say, I am an analytical thinker. Right? It just starts with analytical thinker. What we want to do is just cut out all the fluff and just get right to the point. So that's one thing you'll notice. You'll see at the very end says pursuing, and then whatever the role might be at whatever the organization is. And the reason we do that is because that creates another connection between our resume and whatever job we're applying for. So if their systems are scanning for like word similarity, it helps increase the chances that they'll see that in your resume.
That the keyword search hits, right? Hits your resume.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that brings up a really good point. So I talked to a lot of students and they create these incredible career profiles. They're beautifully written. And what I tell them is this is wonderful, but we need to hold all of the language we use loosely. We need to be really open-handed because I may love that second sentence where it talks about how I'm an analytical thinker, but it may be that the job at hand is really looking for a few other key skills. And maybe I have those, or maybe I really excel at those, but I didn't list them. And so I need to be willing to remove some and bring in some others. The good news is each of you watching this video is diverse. Each of you has a ton of different skills. And so you may write a paragraph and think, man, this is it. This is my paragraph. The good news is you have a lot more there that you can talk about. And so we need to be willing to just pull in and out depending on the job at hand.
Yeah, so I'm gonna ask you this later
Yeah.
on, but sort of strategies for tailoring
Mm-hmm.
resumes. But this is one instance where you're kind of saying that you can tailor resumes to certain jobs by just adjusting the words you use and the
Mm-hmm.
phrases you use in a career profile.
Absolutely. This is one of the best ways that you'll be able to do that. And we will talk about that in just a few minutes. I'm excited to show y'all kind of the tool that both of us are alluding to and the ways that you can do that. But let's go down a little bit. Education, you've got to have that. A couple things you'll notice. One, I spell out Bachelor of Arts. The reason we do that is because most jobs looking for someone with a bachelor's degree. Mm-hmm. So there's that word association, that match there. This is where there's a lot of flexibility in this section. So I want to encourage y'all in that. Right here, you'll see study abroad program, right? Those are things you can list. If you are in maybe an honors college, one of those programs like BIC, you could list that here. You can list your GPA. Maybe you can list your major GPA. For some folks who have a lower GPA, lower overall, they may be worried about that or self-conscious about that. Listing a major GPA is a helpful way to get around that, because oftentimes, at least maybe this is true for me and no one else, it was those classes outside of our major that were hardest for us. Yeah, right? It was the mandatory science classes we had to take that we struggled in. And so our major GPA is higher, and right. That's an okay thing to list. Do you have to list your GPA? You don't, unless the job says that they require that. You don't have to list it, though. I know plenty of people that don't, but it can be helpful if you have one, either overall or major, that you're proud of. You'll see down there relevant coursework. This is a great opportunity to talk about the classes that you've taken, especially if you're applying for a job and maybe A, you don't have a lot of work experience, or B, the job is really different than all the work that you've done, but you feel like maybe your coursework has prepared you for that. So you'll see here, I have kind of a sentence there. Hey, you can list the ones that are applicable. So we're not going to list all of your HKLS classes, right? Intro to running or rest and relaxation, because those probably aren't applicable. Maybe.
Or sailing, for that matter. Yeah. My sailing course doesn't get on there, huh?
It does not, no. And one thing that I'll encourage y'all to do is to remove all the Baylor specific aspects of your course names. So, if it's an HIS 1301, that doesn't mean a whole lot to anyone outside of Baylor. So we can just list, intro to history, or whatever that class is, just the name of the class. So there's a lot of flexibility in your education section. Some things that you don't see are high schools. So we're not going to list the high school you went to and your high school graduation date, because if you're in college, that's assumed. Now, if you got an associate's degree from somewhere and you'd like to list that, that's great. Okay. That's a wonderful thing to list, because that's valuable experience. If you have certifications, maybe it's, you took some leadership course. There are various ones out there. That's something you could list here too. Is it official, like education? No, but it's shaped you, informed you as a person. And so we could list that as well. Like the Dale Carnegie leadership course. That's something that is known out there in the working world and is impressive. So we could put that here. What I'd like to do is jump past this middle section, because that's kind of the heart of the resume. I want to end with that. So let's go down to the bottom, and you'll see this additional section. And this is really our catch-all for for a lot of different things. And I tried in this template to give you examples of what some of those things could be. So you'll see here down there at the bottom, your languages. If you have some experience in another language, you should list that. It could be a major spoken language, or it could be American Sign Language. If you list it, I encourage you to put your proficiency level because they may ask you about that. I applied for a job once and I didn't list my proficiency level, and they quizzed me on it. And I was very embarrassed because I didn't tell them that I know basic Spanish, but I'm definitely not conversational. So if it's basic, that's great. Go ahead and put that because it just adds just a little bit of depth to your application. So we have languages. We also have technical skills. Technical skills are coding languages, softwares you used, maybe use QuickBooks for a job, or maybe if you learned SPSS for like data analysis. It could be a variety of things, or it could just be Microsoft Office Suite. So that's where we would put all of those things. And one of the things that I said right here is we only put the Microsoft Office Suite if it's in the job description. If it's not, it kind of looks like we're just padding our resume with stuff that everyone knows.
Yeah.
But if they ask for it, we got to list it. Some people will ask for like Excel, Word, PowerPoint. Go ahead and list them out if that's how they do it. So we've got technical skills, languages, certifications, if you're CPR certified, other relevant info, like maybe you're applying for a company that has you traveling all around the world. Well, you should probably list it if you've done some traveling, or if you grew up in the Middle East and moved to America in high school, right? It feels odd, but in that scenario, it's relevant information. And like we talked about earlier, it piques someone's interest so that you can talk about that more in an interview. Yeah. Another thing you'll see on here really is two kind of student organizations. There's an honor society where we were a member, and then a student organization where we had a specific role. And you'll see that the way we format these is different because when we're just a member of something, we may attend meetings, we may do some of those things, and those are good, but they're not really worth talking about on a resume. But if we have a specific role, right, where maybe we're taking responsibility, maybe we have leadership in something, that's where we want to flesh that out a little bit. Sometimes I'll see students and they'll put, hey, I was a part of this club and I was the president, and they just move on. I think, man, there's got to be more there because that's a big responsibility. Yeah. Or maybe you were a sing chair. You may think, Jared, why would I put that? I'm not going to be singing and dancing for my next job. Maybe you are. I don't know. Don't want to assume, but probably not. But the reason you put those things is because we can talk out that experience in a way that is applicable. Yeah. We can talk about how you led a group of 150 of your peers and how you managed a budget and how you worked with a team of people to produce something that was consumed, that was experienced by thousands of people. And so it's all about, we're going to get to it a little bit more here in a minute. It's all about how we talk about our experiences. And so those student organizations you're a part of, they are valuable. Mm-hmm. We just have to do the heavy lifting to show that they're valuable.
Yeah, you just have to show why they're valuable to a potential employer. Can I ask a quick question, sort of follow up there, Jared? Can you give us sort of the best practices of these, these bullet points that you put underneath items to explain them? Can you kind of give us some best practices? Because I noticed a few stylistic things that you have in there. For example, again, you're not writing full sentences. These are sort of partial sentences and phrases. You're starting with verbs. What else should students know about like the way to write these little bullet points?
That's a great question. You hit on some really important things. We are starting with ideally strong action verbs. Led, organized, created. The list goes on from there. There are a lot of them. But a few things we want to avoid are assisted with, helped with, worked with, because while those are true and those are good things, what those do, they automatically kind of remind the reader that someone else was doing the work.
Right.
And ultimately that other person is not applying for this job. You are. And so if you said that you assisted with the creation of, a website for maybe a nonprofit in Waco, we would just jump to the fact that you created a website.
Yeah.
And maybe we talk about on the back end that you created it, in collaboration with their staff.
Yeah, with a team of people, right?
Yes, we're leading with you. And then if we need to, then we're bringing in the other people. So it's just a stronger way to start. You're right in that they're not complete sentences. And my goal for these is really to try to pack as much punch in as few words as possible. You'll hear a lot of times people say your bullets have to be one line, and that's not true. You can go to 2 lines. You'll see that I did it right here. And the reason I did that is because maybe I needed 2 lines to express a thought that had value, and I just couldn't break it down anymore. And that's okay. We want to try to keep it as concise as we can, and oftentimes that looks like 1 line, but it doesn't have to be the case. Now, what I will tell you is this. If this bullet right here, if we came along and we saw that, there was just 1 word, the word resume, on that second line, we call that a hanging word. And what's happened is we've given up all of this blank space that we could use to talk. So if we're going to go to a second line, let's make sure that we fill it, and we add some content there. So my goal for every bullet point, you start with a strong action verb. You're using concise language, and that ultimately we're getting beyond just the surface level task. So we'll take kind of the food industry. I think that's an easy example because a lot of people from high school through college work in that industry.
Sure.
And it's a great place to gain experience. I think you learn a lot as a person. And so sometimes students will come in and maybe they'll say, I worked at a smoothie place. So serve smoothies to customers, or, rang people up and gave them their smoothie, or whatever. Those are true things, but we want to think beyond that. Like, what was I really doing? Well, what I was really doing was providing excellent customer service and, a strong first impression to anyone that walked through the door. What I was doing was maybe navigating questions about the menu and addressing customer concerns, or handling transactions on a daily basis. So there is more there than meets the eye.
Yeah, and
that's important.
Yeah, and this is sort of the way that you take a job that might not have anything to do with the job that you're applying for,
right,
and make sense of how the skills or the activities you did in that job are actually relevant to the thing that you're trying to get, right?
Absolutely. And with a role like that, let's say you did work at a smoothie place. The way I try to break it down is, can I address different things? Like, could I address customer service? Could I also address maybe my organizational and leadership skills? Could I address, so depending on what the job is looking for, can I capture multiple of those things in different bullet points? And then can I show impact? And that's a big one. Can I say, I did X and that resulted in Y? Right. I designed a new website that resulted in easier navigation. Or I created, a social media plan for this church that I went to that resulted in an increase in followers, or you could do that for anything. Maybe you write for the Lariat, which is an incredible job, and you can pull a lot from that. So maybe say you wrote 2 articles on a weekly basis for a readership of, X number of people. So it's not an actual result, but it's just providing more context. Yeah. As much as we can, and you'll probably see it in here, because I do provide a little bit of coaching in these bullets, but we want to quantify anything and everything. I know it maybe sounds silly to say that you worked with a team of 4 people, but what it does is it takes it from the abstract and it says, no, this is real, and I can kind of stand behind this. If you said, yeah, I increased followers for this social media account. Cool. Was that like 5 or was that 500 or something in between? So it grounds it in reality. Yes. And I think that's really important. So we want to quantify things. We want to show your impact, and we want to think beyond just the surface level task. And that's, I think something that maybe you as history majors, or if you're not a history major and you happen to be in this class, I think you're prepared well to do, because a lot of what you're doing is you're making sense of the past. And you're thinking about how we can learn from that, how we can step into the future, maybe more knowledgeable or more prepared. And so I think that you've got the creativity, the creative minds to do this really well. And that's what it is. It's just, it's a new way to be creative. And so if you need help wordsmithing these things, or kind of thinking that out, sometimes it's helpful to pull in another person. So maybe you talk to a friend, maybe you talk to your boss, or maybe you talk to someone like me, and we can kind of brainstorm what that looks like.
The way that you present this too, Jared, I really like this, because what you're kind of asking students to do in filling out this resume is to take a little bit of time and think deeply, not just about what you have done, right? I mean, it's easy to list like, I worked at a smoothie place, right? That's right. Easy. But to think deeply about what was it that you were actually doing in that job. And if you actually do think deeply about that, you'll realize that, across lots of businesses, there are commonalities. There are things that you do in every job that are the same sorts of things that other jobs want. And so that's where work experience really becomes useful, because if you can think about what those shared commonalities are and articulate them really clearly and concisely, then all of a sudden you've made actually a very compelling case for why it is this experience equips you to do the thing that you want to do.
Absolutely. And one thing that you mentioned there was work experience, which is what we think of when we talk about the resume. And that's true. But there are a lot of other things that can fall in this larger experience section. And so if you're sitting here watching this video and you think, I don't have work experience, be encouraged, because you don't have to leave the page blank. As you'll see right here, I have company, organization, but I also have, publications and projects. So maybe you worked on a big project for history class where you had to do a lot of research, present that. Awesome. Let's include it. Maybe you had a leadership role in, a nonprofit organization or a student organization. You can move that up from additional and put it here. If you have written, or maybe you've directed a short film. I work with FDM students all the time. So we'll put writer, director, and we'll flesh that out. So know that this section could include part-time work, internships, full-time roles, volunteer, class projects, and more. We just have to be creative with how we talk about it. But you're not pigeonholed to one of those things. I think that's encouraging. And again, it just goes back to our creativity of making sure that we're thinking through those experiences and talking about them in a way that's relevant.
Okay, so we only have a few more minutes left here. So I want to make sure that we get to everything. But a quick question, you mentioned creativity. I mean, when I have done my CV, I have occasionally decided to try to be a little more creative with it and doll it up
Yeah,
a little bit, especially if students are thinking of applying to jobs that have some sort of creative element in it, right? Some sort of design
right.
element or something like that. Are there strategies for making this more creative? Is that a bad idea? How should students think about sort of creativity and a resume?
Great question. At the end of the day, content is primary. So if you have a super creative resume and it looks really flashy and fun, but you don't communicate well in the written form, it doesn't matter. Another thing to think about is I don't know who's looking at this. So I need to make sure it's as easy as possible to read and to navigate. I also know that other people are applying for this job. So they may not have a lot of time. And so by keeping it simple, it makes it readable and scannable. And that's what we want. Now, let's say you want to show that creativity. What I encourage you to do is use this template for all of those online applications, because this will get scanned by a computer. This will, get thrown into the batch, and keeping it simple makes it easier for a computer to not get, confused, and for someone to scan. But when you reach out to someone and email them, or when you meet someone in person, that's where you can bring that more creative one into the picture, because you've already got their ear, you've already got their attention, and they already have the content from your quote unquote boring resume.
Right. That's really good. Okay. So
Yeah.
last question here, Jared.
Yep.
You alluded to this earlier, but there are
Mm-hmm.
ways to tailor resumes. There are certain things that just
Yes.
always show up on the resume and basically kind of are staples there that you're not really
Right.
going to change much.
Yeah.
But also, students should understand that resumes should be tailored to individual jobs, right? What are the
Absolutely.
best strategies for tailoring things and making sure you're being very precise with your resume?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm going to show you all real quick a great tool. Um, it is important to read the job description and to research the company and to know that language. But even then, sometimes it can be hard to know if we're doing a good job. So we have a tool that can help you. It's one of my favorite things that Baylor provides. So if you're here on Handshake, which is our big job search tool, Career Center website, and you go over here to Career Center, and click on that. And we're going to click resources. Now, this is where you get to the different colleges, right? So you can go down and you can find your college. You're going to be in the College of Arts and Sciences. So we'll go ahead and click this. And here we have a ton of resources. Now, all of these pertain to the resume. We're going to click Job Scan. Now, I've already got it pulled up. So the way Job Scan works is that you would copy and paste a job description on the right and upload or paste your resume on the left. So here's what I'm going to do. I found a job, found this job at Tesla, thought it was kind of cool. So we're just going to copy that and paste it in here. Now I'm going to find a resume. I'm going to go into my desktop. I'm just going to select my current resume. So you'll see I uploaded the document and it pulled all the text.
Wow.
And I scan it. All right. So it gives me a match rate of 21%. Now, if this were a test, this would be devastating.
It's not great. Yeah.
It's still not great, but it's not awful.
Okay.
So you're never going to get 100% here because that would just be you pasting the job description in your resume.
Right.
Which is cheating. And probably not going to happen. But what we want to do is we want to shoot for above a 40. And if we can, the closer we can get to like a 60, 70, 80, the better. I'll be honest, 80 is really hard. I very rarely see it, even when people get jobs. Okay. Above a 40, you're doing really well. So we'll come down here and you'll see job title match. I didn't put the job title in my career profile.
Nice. Right.
File type. Some of these things don't affect your score as much, but what does is down here. So these are hard skills. You'll see all these keywords that are used in the job description and I don't use them. I mean, that's a lot of things that I could tailor. Now, I may not be able to hit all of them, but I could hit some at least.
Yeah.
And we go down to soft skills. I hit a few, but there's still plenty that I don't. And then other keywords. So I can edit all of these things and I can rescan my document and I can see how that changes. So I'm not going to do that here for us, but it's an incredible tool. One of the things I will tell you, sometimes people will put iterations of words and then they'll say, oh, you need to use like the root word. Maybe it's, hey, I had, leader, and it says I need leadership, but that doesn't really work with my sentences. It's okay. This system is not perfect. Applicant tracking systems will be able to catch those iterations.
Yeah.
But I think at the heart of it, it will help you tailor your resume and be a more competitive applicant.
Right. What a brilliant tool. That is an awesome resource for Baylor students. Technology. Amazing.
I know.
Right?
Crazy.
Who knew? All right. Jared, you are awesome. Thank you for this. This was immensely helpful. I hope that students who are watching really got a lot out of this. Thank you so much. And we appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Thank y'all so much. If you need any help or any support, don't hesitate to reach out to me or anyone here in the Career Center.